All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Torah Studies. This is our weekly exploration of the Torah portion. Torah portion this week is Devarim, and we begin a brand new book. And I know it's complicated because last week we began a new series. However, this week, Torah Studies, you got to love it. But so Torah Studies started a new season last week, but this week the actual Torah starts a new book, the book of Deuteronomy, the fifth book of the Torah. By the way, Deuteronomy, according to my expertise in French, means second repetition of the law, right? Do is two, and Deuteronomy is the rest of that, I guess. But anyway, Deuteronomy is, in the Hebrew, we call this Mishnah Torah. Hey, Mark, good to see you. Mishnah Torah, like that's the Hebrew pseudonym for Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy. Mishnah Torah means a repetition of the Torah. Why? Because a lot of Devarim, most of it, the fifth book of Torah, is really a repetition of previous mitzvot and previous episodes from the first four books. I remember, I've told this story before in other contexts, other classes, but I feel like I should say it again, because I remember as a kid, I was in maybe sixth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, one of those three. And we were studying this book. And I remember at the beginning, I was very confused. I was like, what is going on here? Like the stories, we've already heard about these stories, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. And maybe because I missed a day of school when the teacher kind of laid it out. But turns out that this book, it's very easy to understand once you understand the context. It's very simple. The Jewish people, right, just to go through all the history, right, they left Egypt, they got the Torah, they built the Mishkan, they wandered for 40 years. We'll talk about all this stuff soon. And now it's at the end of the 40 years of wandering, and the destiny and the destination are clear. It's the Jewish people. They're intended to go at this point into the land of Israel. But we also know that Moses was not going to accompany them into the promised land. He was going to pass away, and Joshua, his primary disciple, would be the one to lead them into the promised land, the Holy Land. And it's at this point that Moses gives his last lecture to the people, 37 days. The last 37 days of his life, he gathers the people every morning and speaks to them throughout the day, and then they reconvene the next morning. So for 37 days in a row, everybody gathers, and Moses speaks to the people, giving them the final instruction. And so in this final context, or in this final message to the people, or these final messages to the people, you can imagine, he talks about the history, right? He talks about what things were like, the good times, the bad times, the complicated times. He reiterates a lot of the very important mitzvot, and he encourages them. We're not going to talk about this tonight per se, maybe we will a little bit, but he also encourages them throughout the book to be strong and to stand up to all the challenges that will face them when they enter the land, because he won't be there with them. So the best he can do is give them this final charge before they go out on their own. And that's how the book opens. So tonight we're
Rabbi,
going to
can I interrupt you 1 second? Because I want to ask a question before we get started. Was the Torah always all 5 books together in one scroll, or did it used to be 5 scrolls?
Good question. So my understanding is that it was always written as one scroll.
It was.
Although it's a little complicated because there's a debate in the Talmud as to how exactly the Torah was written. So one opinion is that God gave Moses all of the mitzvot on Mount Sinai with all the details. Another opinion is that things. Hey, Yaakov, good to see you. Is that good to see you again? Is that as time throughout the years developed, so God told Moses to write more and more, and it was kind of like a work in progress. According to the work in progress opinion, I don't know that means that therefore they had like published one scroll and then they published another scroll, or if they just kind of held off on composing the scrolls until everything was ready, and then everything was written. The last day of his life, it says that Moses put together the Torah scroll, a full Torah scroll. So it's a good question. My understanding is that it all started as one. In fact, I don't think that it's kosher. I know it's not kosher to have a Torah scroll with even one letter missing, let alone 4 other books missing. So to have a kosher Torah scroll, it's got to have the entire piece of it. So that's a long answer to a short question, but hopefully it covers it.
Thank you.
Sure. I mean, that's how we scroll. So basically, all right. So tonight's topic is Holy Land, Holy People. And as I mentioned, Tova and I were talking before about Israel and some of the challenges that Israel is facing. And, we're doing the seminar, this two-part series, How Israel Wins. And the second part of that is tomorrow night, 7:30. If you haven't joined the first one, you can still join the second one. Let me know. A really powerful conversation about just everything involved in the regarding Israel. Tonight, though, we look at not necessarily the conflict or the politics or security and peace, but we look at the spiritual side of Israel, and that's really the focus that we're going to focus on today. And our segue into that conversation is going to be the opening several verses of this week's Torah portion, the Torah portion of Devarim, or again, the opening section of the book of Deuteronomy. Hey, Howard, good to see you. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to jump in. You guys have the copies in front of you. Yaakov, I'll ask you to read. Give me 1 second, though. Let me pull this up. 1 second. Stay with me, guys. Okay. And here we go. Okay, so we're going to begin the reading the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy. Yaakov, take it away, and you'll see right away that there's a lot of ideas. Hey, Sandrine, great to see you. A lot of ideas that require some explanation. All right, take it away.
These are the words that Moses spoke to all Israel on that side of the Jordan in the desert, in the plain opposite the Sea of Reeds, between Paran and Tophel and Lavan and Hatzarot and Dizahab. It is 11 days' journey from Horeb by way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea. It came to pass in the 40th year in the 11th month, on the first of the month, that Moses spoke to the children of Israel according to all that the Lord had commanded him regarding them.
Now, hold on 1 second, because I feel like there's gonna be too much to unpack.
Yeah.
So let's do this a little bit slowly. I usually like to go through it all and then we'll unpack it, but I do want to point out a few things. So first of all, the book opens up by saying these are the words that Moses spoke to all Israel, and I just mentioned that before. In other words, this book really is a transcript, I guess, of the final words, many words that Moses spoke to the Jewish people. And then the Torah details where he said those words. Jordan, opposite the Sea of Reeds, Paran, Tophel, etc. It just kind of identifies. Then the Torah adds in verse number 2 a very interesting, detail. It's an 11 days journey from Horeb by way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea. Now you might be wondering, what are these places? Horeb is another way of saying Mount Sinai. So it's 11-day journey from Mount Sinai to Kadesh Barnea. Kadesh Barnea is a border town of Israel. So in other words, it takes 11 days to get from Mount Sinai to Israel. Guess how long it took the Jewish people? Not 11 days. Yeah.
Who was driving?
Always mentioned
Kadesh Barnea. Yeah. That's right. Right. Donna. No, I don't see that. But yeah, Kadesh Barnea. That her daughter lives there, right? Yeah, this is in the south. Moshav Kadesh Barnea.
In the Negev?
Yeah, in the Negev. Yeah, in the south. So what we have here is 11 days journey. But meanwhile, it took a little longer. So then
because the men were driving.
Because they wouldn't ask directions, exactly. Now, and then in verse 3, just going through a few highlights of these verses, it talks about how it's the 40th year after the Exodus, the 11th month, on the first of the month, Rosh Chodesh, just so you know what this is. The date is Rosh Chodesh Shvat, the 11th month from Nisan, from the month of the Exodus. Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Av, Elul, Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, Teves, Shvat. The 11th month is Shvat. I was born in the month of Shvat. That's neither here nor there, although, it is, I guess, somewhere. But Rosh Chodesh Shvat, the first day of Shvat, is when Moses begins this message. He passes away the 7th day of Adar, which is the next month. So 30 days plus 7, right? 30 days of Shvat plus 7 days of Adar. When he passes away, that's why I told you before, he spoke to them for the last 37 days of his life. The receipts are in front of us in the Bible. It's all right here. Okay, but let's, you should have to unpack it. Let's continue with verse number 4, please.
After he had smitten Sihon, king of the Amorites, who dwelt in Heshbon, and Og, king of the Bashan, who dwelt in Ashtaroth in Edrei, on that side of the Jordan in the land of Moab, Moses commenced and explained this law, saying,
all right, here we go. So that was all the preamble. And here are literally the first words that Moses says in his speech. Take it away.
God spoke to us in Horeb, saying, you have dwelt long enough at this mountain. Turn and journey and come to the mountain of the Amorites and to all its neighboring places in the plain, on the mountain, and in the lowland, in the south, and by the seashore, the land of the Canaanites and the Lebanon, until the great river, the Euphrates River. See, I have set the land before you. Come and possess the land that God swore to your forefathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give to them and their descendants after them.
Perfect. Great. We have the first 8 verses of the book of Deuteronomy. This is a translation. I'm sure there are other versions of the translation. This is actually a pretty decent translation. And you get a sense, right? It starts off just, again, the first, 3 verses or so. Actually more. The first 5 verses talk about the setting, where it happened, when it happened, who's talking to who. It gives you the background, right? This is what's going on. And then it says, and here's what Moses said to the people. And essentially, we could have a conversation. What's he saying? What's he not saying? Whatever. Let's cut to the chase. It seems like what Moses is saying, because again, he once again references in verse 6, Horeb, which is Mount Sinai, that basically God told us at Mount Sinai saying, "Nu, time to go." I mean, I'm paraphrasing. You have dwelt long enough at this mountain, turn and journey. Nu, it's time to go. We know how long it would take them to go into Israel, because we said it before in verse number 2. It's an 11 days journey. So what seems to be happening here is that Moses is telling them, do you remember what happened 40 years ago? We were standing at Mount Sinai. We got the Torah. We did our thing. And then God told us, yalla, let's go. And it would have taken 11 days. And how does the Torah continue after these first 8 verses? The Torah continues by Moses saying, and you know why we didn't? Y'all know why we didn't? Remember the spies? Right? We remember the story. We just read it a few weeks ago. Right? The sin of the spies. We sent in spies to check out the land, and they came back with a negative report. You guys panicked, and God said, 40 years of wandering for y'all. No soup for you. I mean, no Israel. Seinfeld reference. Hey, Richard, good to see you. Right? No. Any Seinfeld fans? You guys Seinfeld fans? Yeah. Right?
He's coming to Atlanta.
Who is? Jerry? Really? Where's he going? Fox?
Tickets are only what, $800?
Well, maybe we'll. Interesting.
Yeah.
Jerry Seinfeld.
Really?
Yeah, we should do a group visit.
Tickets.
Yeah, maybe I'll open for him.
That would be great. I used to really like
As
it.
if. Okay, yeah, he was good. But okay, back to the story. So it was an 11 days journey. God says, go. The Jewish people say, wait, we have a plan. Let's send spies, blah, blah, blah. And the next thing you know, plan is derailed. And now it's 40 years later. And why is Moses digging up old skeletons? For one reason. He's not just saying, he's not wagging his finger at the people. That's not the intention here. He's telling them, be careful. Well, maybe he is wagging, but it's a constructive wag. Be careful. Thank you. Don't mess up again. Remember what got you into this mess in the first place. Why I oughta. I'm kidding. He didn't say that. Right. Well, remember what got you into the mess. It was a lack of trust in God. Trust in God. You got this. God's got this. Don't panic. What is it? Don't panic. God is my driver. Something like that. There's some sort of bumper sticker. Don't worry, be happy. Whatever. Okay. God's got the wheel. And so all is good. God is my co-pilot. Well, I'm God's co-pilot. God's really running the show. Okay, that's the story, and that's kind of how the Torah portion opens, or the 5th book of Torah opens, and it goes from there, and you can find it at your favorite, bookstores or synagogue. Okay, great. Here's what I want to point out, and this is going to open up. It's always amazing how every week we find something, one little crack, even if it's not a crack. We find like the book in the bookshelf to pull open, and then everything turns around. You know what I'm talking about. Have you ever been in a house with that?
Like a secret bookshelf?
Yes, I've been in a house like that. There's a house in the neighborhood. Literally one of those books that you pull out, the whole bookshelf turns around and it opens up to a secret door. Legit.
Is that like a safe room, or like for safety?
I don't think it's a safe room. You know why they have locks on an ark in the synagogue? To have a safer Torah. Say, okay. Jerry Seinfeld, call this man. Call him. Tell him I have good material.
Keep
right.
your day job, Rabbi. Keep your day
Thank
job.
you. It's literally my day job. All right.
I'll
Good.
come listen. I'll come and listen to you.
Ah, there you go. I have one. Mom, thank you, Mom. Awesome. All right. Back to the story. Back to the story.
Make a bigger audience.
So I will need, yeah. Okay, we only need to recruit more. Okay, but back to the Torah portion. So I want to point out something interesting. You know, Moses makes it sound like this was like chick-chock. Like they call this in football like a bang-bang play, like boom, boom, ready to go. Like they got out of Egypt, although he didn't mention the Exodus, but it almost sounds like Egypt, Torah, let's go. Not actually what happened. When did they send the spies? Because he's like, we were about to go in and we would have gone in if not for the spies. Okay, hold on. When did the story of the spies happen? The stories of the spies happen a good year to a year and a half, between a year and 2 years after the Exodus. They traveled for about 2 months. Remember, 7 weeks between the Exodus and Sinai, right? Sfirat HaOmer, 49 days.
How long were they at Sinai?
Well, they were at, I don't know the exact amount of time. They were there for a while. And then, hold on. It gets, wait. That's a good question, but let's address it for a second. So it was almost 2 months before they got to Sinai. Then they had Sinai. Then Moses goes up the mountain for 40 days. So that's another, 5 weeks, okay? Then what happens is they sin with the golden calf. Oh, great. Mazel tov, right? So now Moses has to go up for another 80 days to get forgiveness, culminating with 80 more, 40 and 40. So 3 times 40
for 80 days.
I don't know if he fasted, but whatever. He was up in the mountain for a total of 120 days. Then what happens is on Yom Kippur, like the following Yom Kippur, he comes down with the second set of tablets. Then the Jewish people have to build the Mishkan, because that's like the reparation. That's like how they're going to fix everything. They're going to build a space for God and welcome God back in, a whole Torah. And then they build the Mishkan. That takes them a while. Then they inaugurate the Mishkan. And then things keep on dragging. And then at some point in time, again, it's probably like a year and a half to 2 years later, now they're sending spies. Maybe a year and a half later, they're sending spies. And then that takes 40 days. For some reason, the number 40 is a big thing. The spies go in the land for 40 days. They come back, negative report. The people panic, decree. So I have a question. Here's my question. It's a new question. I don't think we've ever discussed this before. I don't remember ever asking this question before. If the Jewish people were meant to go into the land of Israel, right? Exodus, Israel, right? That's the next destination conceptually. Why didn't they go in right away? Why did they even get the Torah outside of Israel? Why not go into Israel, get the Torah, build a Mishkan or build a Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple? Why not take care of everything inside of Israel? Why do this whole... Now, we make it sound like, the reason why the Jews were in the desert for 40 years because instead of the spies. Well, that doesn't... The spies. Well, that explains maybe 38 and a half years. But what's with the first year and a half? What's with that time? Why didn't they go... If Israel was the destiny, go in right away. Egypt, go to Israel, and that's it. Or at Mount Sinai, get the 10 Commandments, ta-da, go into Israel. No, we have to wait for Moses, and then there's a sin, and then everything gets derailed. What's going on? Yeah.
There was something going on about they had a slave mentality.
Okay, good. So Toba's saying, you are correct. So Maimonides and others say that generation had a slave mentality, and therefore they couldn't go into Israel, and it was like psychologically, emotionally, they weren't ready to go into Israel, etc. Okay, good. That's a good answer. But on God, let's say on God's side, and again, I guess you could say that kind of God knew where they were up to, what they were capable of handling. But I think the question here is, on a conceptual level, at least, why wasn't there more of a drive, even on God's side, to push them into Israel? And again, you could be saying maybe they weren't ready for it, and that's valid. We're going to look at it from a different angle. Again, the question is, yes, there was the sin of the spies that delayed the entry into the land of Israel, but it seems like there were other delays that happened before then, and the question is why now? What leads us also to ask this question is Rashi's commentary in text number 2. Sandrine, if you don't mind reading that one, give me 1 second. Let me just pull this up for everybody.
Well, the results were we survived exile because we were in a desert when we became a nation, and we weren't as
True. Yeah.
on a land.
Yeah.
Country.
Right. We were kind of outside. Good. We're going to touch on that, actually. That's a good insight. Sandrine, please read text 2. This is Rashi in verse number 6.
You have dwelt long enough. He has given you much greatness and reward for having dwelt at this mountain. You made the tabernacle, a menorah, and the other sacred vessel of the temple. You received the Torah. You appointed courts and hierarchies of leaders.
So Moses, as Rashi says, you've dwelt long enough. So Rashi explains that either Moses saying this about God or whatever, that you had so many beautiful opportunities and privileges at Mount Sinai and in the desert. You made a Mishkan, you made a menorah, you made the other vessels, you got the Torah, you appointed courts and hierarchies of leaders. Oh, wonderful, beautiful, wonderful. My question is, and it's really not my question, it's the Rebbe's question. The question is, what's up with this? Why all this stuff in the desert? Why not just go into Israel and do all this stuff? If that was the destiny anyway, why not? So I want to share with you tonight the following. We're going to approach this from 2 different perspectives. Okay? There is perspective A and perspective B. Now, ultimately, will they kind of dovetail or cross into each other? They might, but I don't feel compelled to kind of shoehorn one into the other. I'm going to share with you 2 perspectives, and I think both perspectives are valid and meaningful for all of our lives. So here we go. Perspective number 1. Perspective number 1 takes the approach that the entry into Israel would be fraught with challenge and difficulty. They would have to fight wars. They would be faced with conflict, and it would not be easy. So perspective number 1 says the following. Before you put yourself in a position of conflict and challenge and difficulty, you better make sure that you're ready for the battle.
And
unified. You have to make sure that you are internally ready to face your opponent, to face a foe. Because if you're not ready, you're going to crumble at the sign of conflict. You have to be ready. You have to be strong. You have to know who you are, etc. In other words, you can't rely on, well, we're going to show up and then we'll figure it out. You got to have a game plan before you go in. You have to be ready before you go in. That's why you need to get the Torah. That's why you need to have a Mishkan. That's why you need to have a court system. You have to have everything lined up internally before you go into Israel and face the battle. Now, I just told you the first approach, but let's work through it. I wanted to make sure, because I don't want to get lost in any text, but let's look at this and see how this plays out in the various texts. Now, the way we're going to approach this, I kind of gave you the overview, but the way we're going to kind of slowly go through this point is by contrasting 2 different types of people or nations. One type of people or nation is a nation that's built around a geographical location. So let me explain. You start off with a geography, and then when you have a common geography, then you decide, okay, what are we going to do? In other words, we find ourselves in this location, longitude, latitude. We find ourselves in this location. We'll put a border around it. We'll call it Rabbi Ari Stan. What is that? Right? Cool. Who wants to join me? Right? And then we're going to figure out, okay, so what do we stand for? Like, what should be our bylaws? Right? Like, what are we doing? It's kind of like we're going to build the community, then we'll create an HOA, and now we have to, okay, so what do we stand for? Like, what are the requirements? Did I say a dirty word, HOA? My bad. But anyway, right? So like, what are we, so now what are we going to do? Like, what's the plan? What's the plan, Stan? Like, so we have a space. What are we going to do? That's one type of people, one type of nation. Now, to kind of explore this, text number 3. Toba, please read, but 1 second, let me pull this up. Please read text number 3. This is a verse from Genesis, which speaks about the origins or genesis of different nationalities. And take a look at how the Torah describes.
From these, the islands of the nations separated in their lands, each one to their language, according to their families in their nations.
And thank you. And the commentaries point out that it almost sounds like that once the nations separated in their lands, then they distinguish they distinguish themselves with a different language, and then their families and their nations. In other words, but first it begins with the geography, the actual eretz, the actual land. And once they have a specific portion of land, then they decide, here's what we're gonna dress like, here's how we're gonna talk, this is what we do, then we decide what our club looks like. So, but first, we gather around kind of geographical proximity, draw a little border around ourselves, and then we're like, okay, this is what we stand for. That's how most nations begin. Not with an ideology, but rather with a geography. You begin with the geography. Here's where we are. And then we're like, okay, let's figure out what we stand for. Let's vote on it, or let's not, whatever. Okay, we figured that. However, the Jewish people are different. We don't begin with a geography, right? Judaism, whether you say it begins with Abraham or, more, I guess, technically, if it begins at Sinai, precisely the question that we asked before points us to the conclusion that we don't begin with a geography. Our nationhood, i.e. Judaism begins with the Torah, right? With an ideology, with a belief system. Now take a look at text number 4. I'll read text number 4. Okay, Exodus chapter 19, verse number 6 says, "You shall be to me," God says, this is prior to the giving of the Torah, "a kingdom of princes and a holy nation," which means that the definition of Judaism, right, and the children of Israel is going to be this idea of a holy nation. And what does it mean to be a holy nation? So essentially, what we're saying is that is the ideology. That's the movement. The movement is about holiness, about sacredness, right? That's the ideal, and it's not about a space. It's about a way of life. What is the way of life? What does that look like? Yaakov, we're back to you. Text number 5. Please read.
"And you shall be holy, for I, God, am holy."
So God says, what does it mean to be a holy people? It means be like me. Remember those commercials for Nike, maybe? Back in the day? Be like Mike? Who remembers those commercials? Remember, be like Mike?
Mm-hmm.
Comes from Torah. Well, sort of. Just paraphrase a bunch of things. Michael Jordan. Yeah. It was
Michael Jordan here.
although no one called him Mike. Mike Jordan?
Be like
Jordan.
Michael?
No, they said be like Mike. Like Mike.
Michael Jordan.
Like Mike. Nike. E. So close. So close. But anyway, right? You guys remember Be Like Mike, right? You guys, yeah, Be Like Mike. Yeah. All right. So look, was it Nike? Gatorade? Probably Nike. The point of this is that God says, be like me. Kadoshim tihiyu, you shall be holy. Ki kadosh ani, because I am holy. And the commentaries say, what does that mean? It means that we ought to, as we go through our lives, emulate the example that God sets in the Torah. So for example, God sets the example that when Abraham is sick or is not feeling well after his Brit Milah, so he visits him. God speaks to Abraham. God, Bikur Cholim, right? God visits. And there are other instances, Bikur Cholim, Hachnasat Arachim, visiting the sick, welcoming in guests, etc. There are feeding those that need to be fed, providing life in general, right? That God creates. The point is that we are meant to, in our own lives, as we go through our lives, to emulate God to the best of our ability. And when we do so, that is what it means to be holy. To be holy means, look, holiness, kadosh, or kedusha in Hebrew, really means, you guys know what that means, right? What does kadosh mean?
Holy.
But what else does it mean? Kadosh. What does it mean? Separate or distinct. It means distinct. When everybody is doing this, be a little different. Don't necessarily just, they say, how do you know it was salmon? Which one? Because they swim upstream, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like, how do you know you're alive? It's when you can go against. I'll tell you a story. Oh, I love this story. I told it before.
Did you say separate? Or
Separate.
sacred?
Well, a kadosh means sacred. In general, it means holy, sacred. But it really means separate. Like oil, like floats to the top. Doesn't mean it's not idea of higher than. It's not an arrogant thing, but it's about a distinctiveness. It's about difference.
Is set aside another translation for Kadesh?
Could be. I think it's the same similar concept. The idea of different, set aside, distinct, distinguished. I'll tell you a story about different, right? About separate. So there was once, Reb Mendel Futterfass. Love these stories. You know Reb Mendel, right? Chassid lived in the 1900s. Fast runner.
Futterfass.
Oh, Futterfass.
Extremely fast.
Right, extremely fast. Anyway, so Mendel Futterfass was thrown into, he was a Chabad guy, and he was part of the Chabad Jewish underground in Soviet Russia. And they basically sent him to Siberia for like, I don't know, 10, 20 years. And that was their way. Look, a lot of people they shot, but a lot of people they just got rid of. They threw him to the frozen tundra of Siberia, and that was it. Like, go live out your life over there. If you make it, good luck. Well, he survived, and he lived to tell the tale, and he told tales. He had the most unbelievable stories. So I'll share with you one. He said he was, and it wasn't only Jews. There was anyone who was counter-revolutionary against communism. You had professors and scientists and whatever it was, people that didn't toe the line, and they were all thrown. Anyway, so he meets, I think I'm getting the right context. He meets a guy there who was a former Cossack. I think the timeline would line up. This is the story, the way I recall it. A former Cossack. And the guy is, one night he said a few l'chaim, this other guy, and he's crying. And Mendel goes over to him. He's a nice guy. He goes over to him and he says, "Why are you crying?" He says, "You wouldn't understand." He says, "Tell me." He says, "No. You wouldn't believe it. I'm crying about my horse. If you're a Cossack, you need a good horse." He says, "Tell me more." He says, you can't appreciate a Cossack horse. He says, "You know how we got our horses? We used to go into the wilderness, into like mamish no man's land, like where no one was, to find a pack of strong and wild horses. Then we would take the horses and drive them into the river. There was like a raging river. They would drive them into the river." He says most of the horses were too weak and they couldn't survive the raging river. Only the strongest horses were able to survive and cross to the other side.
Pretty cool.
He said, "Well, Cossacks were pretty cruel." Yeah, Cossacks were
Tough.
They were tough and cruel. Then he says, "But that's still not a Cossack horse." What's a Cossack horse? A Cossack horse is the horse that after it crossed the other side, it went back into the river to rescue other horses. That's a Cossack horse. That's that, and that was the story that he told. And so obviously, so many messages here. Message about, strength. True strength is not just caring about yourself, but it's turning around and caring about the other guy. And that's not just you being okay, it's making sure the other guy's okay. All beautiful messages. And I think it speaks to the truth, the idea of what it means to be holy. What it means to be holy is not just to care about yourself and your own personal holiness, but it's to care about others. To be distinct and to be different means, because, everyone thinks about themselves. You don't have to be holy to think about yourself. Everyone thinks about themselves. Some people think about themselves about what they're going to eat. Some people think of themselves about how much they're going to pray. But it's still the same concept of thinking about yourself. To be really holy means that you're thinking a little less of yourself and a little bit more about someone else, or a little bit more about your purpose. And so we have this Torah. We have this thing called Torah. And Torah gives us the ability, it gives us even the guidance or the verstand, the appreciation, the intellectual appreciation of, oh, wait, there's another narrative. There's another possibility. I don't just, look, you look at the world, you look at media, you look at Madison Avenue and marketing, and everyone's like, here's what you need. Okay, great. So, we're programmed by society to be consumers. Like, this is what I need, right? I got to take care of myself. Even the whole, I'm not putting anything down, but even the whole wellness movement is all about, here's what I need. This is, I need me time. I need my space. I need my this, my, not like the old website MySpace, but I need my time, my space, my care. I need my, whatever it is. Judaism says, sure, great, take care of yourself. However, Don't forget what your mission is. Your mission is to take care of others, to take care of the world, to take care of a higher calling. It's mission-oriented, not self-oriented. Manis Friedman, many of you know Rabbi Manis Friedman, right? So he has this great line or this great bit where he talks about the difference between life and existence. The way he frames it is existence is consuming. How fun is that? Like, what are you doing all day? How many years are you going to just consume? It's like, here's what I need. I mean, it's draining. But if you reorient just your whole thinking, it's like, I'm not here for myself. I'm here for a purpose. I'm here to help. I'm here to give. I'm here to do. Well, now it's different. Now I'm living. I'm not just existing. So again, that's just the framing. So Torah teaches us how to be holy, not just how to be alive or how to exist, but it's about how to be holy. Holy is different. Holy is a purpose-driven life. And so to kind of come full circle, any people can gather around a geographical location and say, hey, this is what we stand for. This is what we're going to do. This is who we're going to be. But God said, no. I'm going to create a people whose identity is not forged by a geographical kind of random geographical location. And then they're going to think about what they need to survive in that place. And then they're going to create a whole, ideology around kind of that. It's like ready, fire, aim style. But rather, we're going to create a people, a movement, a society around ideologies, around beliefs, around purpose, and around mission. So it's not going to begin in a land. It's going to begin in no man's land. This is going to begin in a desert. This is going to begin in not a place, but in an idea. This is going to begin with Torah. And then it's going to continue with a Mishkan, because you have to also introduce, what is a Mishkan? I think we have a text for this, actually. Yeah, Mishkan is a tabernacle, but we have here, I'm going to skip text 6. I'll just tell it to you outside. What we have here is a space. The tabernacle gives a person or gives a people a space to bring God into our lives. It's like God is not distinct from you. God is within you. So even before we have our own place, listen to this idea. Even before we have our own land, our own place, we make place for God. Isn't that beautiful? Before we have our own place, did you create space for God? Forget about your space. What about God's space? Forget about my space. How about God's space? That's a great new website. So that's the concept. That's the concept. Before a land, an ideology, before my space, your space. And then, so that's why they got the Torah first. That's why they built a Mishkan first, i.e. before they entered the land. And that's why they set up a court system, because if you have a Mishkan and you have mitzvot and obligations and things that you're doing to better the world, to better humanity, to better yourself, to better, for your purpose, well, questions are going to come up. And when questions come up, you need answers, you need elders, you need leaders, you need mentors, etc. You need judges. And so they created that system as well. And so now we have our first answer or first approach to the question, just to reset the question and the answer. The question was, why didn't God kind of push everything forward much quicker? God could have taken us out of Egypt, moved us straight into Israel, and in Israel, got the Torah, built a Mishkan, set up the court system. I know how it played out. You know how it played out. This is kind of reimagining everything. Why not take the people, put them in Israel, and then start there? And the answer number one, first approach, is that it's important to remember that this doesn't begin in a land. This is not a society that springs up out of some sort of geographical context or need. This is now an ideology. This is beginning with ideas about how people should be. It's not about where people should be. It's about how people should be. This is about a way of living. It's a way of life. It's an approach. It requires a Torah. It requires creating space for God. It requires, creating accountability and creating a framework for knowing what to do and how to do it. And then now that you're set, when you're comfortable with that, and you're right, Toba, it might take a second generation. First generation might not be ready for it. It might take a second generation before you're ready to go into a land and then apply it. It's almost like, trying to think, using a sports analogy, it's almost like, before you start Yeah, whatever. I was pulled in Sunday. I was roped in as a backup for the Shul softball league. I don't know if you guys know about this.
Yeah.
Yes, there is legitimately an Atlanta synagogue softball league. So Sunday, CBT, Betfila played Dar Tamid. Dar Tamid, is that a shul? That's the name of a synagogue, right? Dar Tamid? No, Dar Tamid, I think is the name. And Arva Shalom. We beat Dar Tamid.
Wow.
And lost handily to Arva Shalom. They're very good. Arva Shalom, they're actually, if you guys are watching, I don't know how or where, whatever, you guys are really good. Okay, my point is, man, it's gonna be a stretch. No, my point is, speaking about stretching, you have to get yourself ready before you go onto the field, right? You got to get yourself ready to go. Practice, you go to the batting cages, you do stretches, whatever it is. Get yourself ready before you go out into the field. God did not put us into the land before we were ready. We needed to have a Torah. We needed to have Torah, have purpose, create space for God, create accountability for ourselves, have a system, have a framework. You ready? 40 years, the next generation, you guys ready? Training wheels come off, go into the land. That's the first approach. But as you know, we're not going to stick with the first approach. Now, how did you know that? Because I said there are two approaches. So you can guess if there's a first approach, there's probably a second approach. Susan, jump in.
Having to have a place for Hashem, isn't he everywhere?
It's less about God having a place and more about us creating space for him. The emphasis is not on God needing a space. The emphasis is on us training ourselves to create space for God. That's a different angle.
Gotcha.
It's very easy for a person to go about their life, day-to-day life, and not think about God. It's like, I have all these things, I have all these meetings set up, and I have all these these deadlines, and I got all these responsibilities. Oh God, I don't have time today. Like I would love to talk to you. I would love to study your Torah, but God, so sorry. How's Tuesday at 9 a.m.? Does that work for you better? Because it works for me much better, right? So it's easy to go throughout our day and not make space for God. The kunz is, right? The trick is to make that space. So it's not that God needs the space. We need the space. It's almost like tefillah, like prayer. I always say about prayer. Prayer is not because God needs to know how great he is. Prayer is because we need to know how great God is and how blessed we are. God doesn't need our blessings. We need to know how blessed we are from God. That's a different angle. So it's not about God needing space. We need to create space for him in our lives. That is healthy. That is healthy for us to have that type of attitude. Okay, I hope that makes sense. But all that is, yes, Mark.
I've got a little explanation on that. I'm sure you already know. Because in the Torah, it says, Hashem, our God spoke to us in Horeb, which is Sinai, saying, you have had much dwelling by this mountain. And then I've got the first, and of course, Rashi says, you made implements, you made the tabernacle, the menorah, the implements, you received the Torah, you employed Sanhedrin. Anyway, according to its simple meaning, this is a note on it, on Rashi. This is from Sifsei Chachamim, whatever that is. It says you've dwelt here long enough. It is time you moved on. That's the first understanding of that, and that is more, I guess, geographically focused. But then from something which is from Sifrei 5, which is what is that?
Midrash.
Okay, it says according to the Midrashic interpretation, the verse is understood as saying, "You have gained much because of dwelling by this mountain, not because of the mountain, but because you dwell there." So it's a different way. I just want to pass that along. Okay.
By the way, so one answers the other. I think that's exactly what we're saying. The second opinion answers the first opinion. Notice the first opinion says, you've been here long enough, it's time to go. And the second one says, why were you here so long? To get internally supercharged before you go in. So to face an enemy and to conquer a land, you gotta get ready and you have to make sure that you're ready. So that's the first approach. The second approach, let's jump into the second approach. Second approach is also beautiful. It's a little bit different. It's also beautiful. And it says like this. Israel is called the Holy Land. Right? I don't know of any other land called the Holy Land other than Costco. I'm kidding about Costco. Or maybe I'm not, because Costco is pretty awesome.
Appalachian Mountains are called God's country, but it's because they're the oldest mountain.
Appalachian is called God's country. Okay, yeah, but all right, God's country, still not called Holy Land. I'm just saying, Holy Land, Batman, is only one land. When you call it the Holy Land, I think there's a beautiful text. I don't know where it is. Somewhere here, the Rebbe says that, oh, text 15. We're not gonna read it right now. Like he says, every nation calls it the Holy Land. Hebrew, English, Russian. I don't know what it's called in Russian, but Rebbe knew Russian. He was from there. So like, and every nationality, huh?
French, la Terre Sainte.
Oh, French is also, that's what it's Holy Land, right? Okay, so it's not like one language. It's not like in Hebrew we call it Eretz HaKodesh, and that's an anomaly. That's like that's a quirk of the Hebrews that Israel is called the Holy Land. No, every language calls it the Holy Land. The way we understand this is that, what does it mean? Okay, now let's break this down. So Israel is the Holy Land. What does that mean? The Holy Land. Land is land. Land is earth. What makes a land holy? So the simple answer would be, so stay with me on this journey. The simple answer would be, why is it a holy land? Because people are doing holy things on the land, right? Because
that's the only way a place can get holy.
Right. The only way a place can get holy is if people infuse it with holiness. So the Jewish people went there, they built a Beit HaMikdash, a holy temple, they brought holy offerings, whatever they did, right? Holy Moses, Batman, whatever. So they did what they did, and they infused holiness into the land. They made holy an adjective to land, and that's what happened. That's what we might think. But according to the sources, you find something else. From the Midrash and other sources, you find something remarkable. And I'll find a few texts to read soon, don't worry. It's all in the text, but I just want to share it outside first so we don't get lost in the text. We find the remarkable thing is that Israel, even before the Jewish people step foot into the land, is already called the Holy Land. And the holiness is not because anyone did anything holy on the land. The holiness is because God chose that land. It's the chosen land, therefore it's the Holy Land. Kind of like the Jewish people are the chosen people, and a nation, as God says, you will be unto me a holy nation. It's not only vis-a-vis or insofar as we're doing the holy things that we become holy. That was all interpretation number one that I shared with you tonight. That was like 3 minutes ago. Now I'm sharing a new angle. And the new angle is that holiness is not derived from what you do. Holiness is derived simply by God's choice. When God chooses the land of Israel to be the Holy Land, that already makes it holy. It's divine holiness. Not because we went there and we built that, or we did that, or good things happened there, and they're beautiful and historical and spiritual, archaeological, creations that were built. No. Holy land because it's the Holy Land. Now that sets up something I think even more mind-blowing. Listen to this. If you imagine that Israel is holy just because God chose it, what that means is that when we go into the land, there's an expectation. Oh, you're going into a holy land, you got to be holy. What do you mean? You're going to be mundane in a holy land? As they say in Yiddish, feh. You know what that means? How do you translate feh? I have a good translation. Feh, right? Feh, like, ugh, ew. Who does that? That's so passe, or whatever the right term is. Right? How would you do it? It's a holy land. God chose the land. It's a holy land. That land, right? The land of Israel is holy by virtue. It's innately holy. Well, I mean, innately because God chose it to be holy. Now, when we come in, we have to show up appropriately. It's like, imagine if you were invited to, I'm going to give you a few stretches here. Imagine
the White House.
I was going to say, imagine you lived, because I don't think it has the same grandeur. Imagine if you had a king right? Imagine if you had if you lived in a nation that had a monarchy and the king was revered and honored and you were just overwhelmed by the king in a good way. And then you got an invitation to the king's palace. Wow, you would dress up for the occasion.
Buckingham.
Huh?
Buckingham.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right, Buckingham
The
Palace,
most famous.
where I was. You know when I went to Buckingham Palace? I went to yeshiva in 1995, 96 for 1 year in London, right, Mom? You remember this? I toured. I was all year in yeshiva. Yeshiva schedule, just so you know, just for the record, 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. with breaks for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's it. That's like you get like 45 minutes to an hour each time, but otherwise you have like pretty much a 14-hour day. And then you learn before early and late and whatever. It's all fun. So there's no time to go sightseeing. So I'm in London, but London, shkoyach. The one time I got out, it sounds like I wasn't locked, but one time we were escaped. One time we broke free of our shackles. Kidding. Was on Fridays, because Fridays, in Chabad yeshivas, Friday you go out into the city and you go rap film with people. You go, a little guerrilla street Judaism. Hey, are you Jewish? Here's some Shabbat candles. Would you like to wrap tefillin? Absolutely. Let's do a bar mitzvah in the middle of the street. So I used to go to nope. It was Princess Diana's palace was right there. It was High Point, Kensington. High Point / Kensington. Yeah. That's where I would go every Friday. They had a bunch of antique stores and Persian rug stores, bunch of Persian Jews. So we used to go there. We had a route, where we go down, literally we'd get off the tube, the London Underground, one stop, walk down High Street, Kensington, down to the end of it, the whole street. We had like probably 15, 20 shops. We would go in, share Dvar Torah on the Parsha, wrapped film with the guys. That's it. It was great. It was great. We got into the city. But that was the extent of it. And then we had to go back because Shabbat started, throughout the winter. School is pretty much throughout the winter and a little bit of the spring, but that's pretty much a semester. And Shabbat in England starts. No fish and chips. So the first time I toured was, I think, like 2 days or the day before I came back. It was around this time of year. Yeshiva got out, and there was like a gap of like a day or two, and Yeshiva was like, okay, you can do whatever you want, sort of, like keep it kosher. So I went with a friend. We saw Buckingham Palace, and we went the Tower Bridge. We went to.
You go inside the palace because you can.
I don't think we went inside the palace. No, because we had like 1 day. Well, we had 1 day, and we tried to hit as much as we could, and we hit what we hit. Anyway, the point is, you would dress up for the occasion. I didn't forget where we're up to, by the way. You would dress for the occasion. So the message here is, Israel is the Holy Land. You gotta dress appropriately. I don't actually mean dress, but you gotta be holy. That now gives us another angle. This is, again, the second interpretation of why we had to get the Torah and build a Mishkan and have a court system before we went to Israel. What, you're going to go into Israel cold? You're just going to walk in, Azoy, again, more Yiddish, just like that, off the street? Who does that? What, you're going to go into a holy land with slippers and a baseball cap? What you talking about, Willis? You got to go in, dressed for the occasion. You got to go in, ready to roll. Little different strokes action. You got to go in looking the part and being the part. That's why, on a deeper level, we had to get the Torah. We had to get the build the Mishkan. We had to have the tabernacle. We had to have a court system. We had to have things up and running, both on a communal level and an internal level, to be a holy people, to be worthy of going into a holy space. So again, just to differentiate between these two positions, the first angle that we expressed was that before, I don't remember the first one anymore. What was the first one? The first one was that before you face the challenge, whatever, you have to make sure you gird yourself, right? It's not about a geographical thing. It's about an ideological thing. All right. But the second angle, which I really love, is that,
in other words, altruistic. Being holy means altruistic.
Be holy, altruistic before you go. Okay. But this one is, no. Israel is holy. It's not about a challenge or a danger or the danger of building around the space. No. It's a holy land. It's good to go. The question is, are you all good to go? Right? Where are you holding? The land is holy. The question is, how holy are you? In other words, are you befitting the land? This lends us another layer of depth as to our spiritual connection to the land. Take a look. Yeah, Yaakov.
Two questions. So when you walk into an area and there's been devil worship for generations. It's evil, it's hopeless, it's horrific. And I've felt that, and I felt other areas that it's like, it's love and peace and everything that people have poured into that area. So how is that different from this type of holiness? And then the second question is, since the borders of Israel have changed, is Syria and Jordan still holy? And Egypt?
Two excellent questions. Question number one is the holiness a product of what people have done or not done in that place? So I think there's two types of holiness. You talked about spaces where you felt like a little bit, you felt like a negative energy around places where negative things have been done. That's still not the level of holiness that we're talking about for Israel. Israel is holy not because anything positive had yet happened there. Remember, who was living there at that point? The 7 Canaanite nations, the nations that were not monotheistic. They were idolaters. They were pagan nations. They weren't, let's say, if we believe that God is into monotheism, which pretty much seems like he is. So you wouldn't say that God was quelling with nachas, more Yiddish, right? Yiddish alert for the tennis class. You wouldn't say that God was quelling like, oh, look at my Canaanites. Oh, I love them. That wasn't probably what was going on. And yet it's a holy land. Holy land is not because of what people were doing there. It's because the land itself, God chose it. It's holy. Now we have a responsibility to show up. Now, which land is the land? It's the biblical borders. That's straight up the biblical borders, the land of the land.
So Syria is holy. Jordan
Whatever,
is holy.
I don't know, whatever
The
that
whole areas.
whatever those borders were of the original land, it's not about the state of Israel, it's the land of Israel, Eretz Yisrael, not Medinat Yisrael. It's not about the state. We're not talking about the state right now. We're talking about the land. The land of Israel is holy. And therefore, again, the second point is we got to show up in that way. I know we're at the time. Give me like 2 more minutes. We're going to close out. Give me an extra, like total of 5 minutes. We're going to close out 2 more minutes. I just want to do a quick few texts. I'm going to read them quickly. Take a look at text number. Let's skip to text number 11. Text 11 is beautiful. Okay, take my word for it, and let's read it together. Zechariah, and God shall inherit Judah as a portion in the holy ground, and shall choose Jerusalem again. Text 12, and the captain of God's host, that's an angel, said to Joshua, remove your shoes from your feet. For the place on which you stand, it is holy, and Joshua did so. In other words, the moment he walked in, this is Joshua 5. The adventure continues. This is right after they first went into Israel. And he was told by the angel, Joshua was told, take off your shoes. It's holy ground. Don't separate. Don't create a separation between your foot and the ground. The earth itself is holy. How is the earth holy? What? Someone built a temple here, a holy temple? What happened? No, the land itself is kadosh. Take a look at text 13. I love text 13. I love text 13 more than you guys know. The Shalach HaKadosh says, one should learn from here that when a person is in a holy place, they should adopt holy practices. The holier the place, the more holy practices one should adopt. And so here we go. Here we go. This gives us a final message. We're going to do the final text here. Okay, text number 16. Text 16, a final charge. All Jewish people are inheritors of the entire Torah, which includes the verse, your locks. That means like the locks of Israel are iron and copper. As such, every single Jew possesses the ability to influence the security of the land of Israel and to create locks of iron and copper for its protection. Even if one is very far away from Israel, they still have the responsibility to care for its security, as the land of Israel is the eternal birthright of every Jew. Practically, this means that when any Jew, even a young child, studies Torah and observes mitzvot, they create iron and copper locks for the entire Jewish nation, being that all Jews are interconnected. In other words, when one studies Torah and performs mitzvot, they secure the land of Israel with locks of iron and copper against any adversary. When a Jew increases their study of Torah and observance of commandments, mitzvot, God, the commander-in-chief of the Jewish nation, collects all the Torah mitzvot and puts them in storage and subsequently distributes them wherever they are needed. Thus, in any place there are Jews, these Torah and mitzvot create iron and copper locks for their protection. I wanted to end with that verse because it first of all, I think it's beautiful, especially today, literally today, when everyone's worried about Israel's security. And we think, well, what can we do? I mean, hopefully the U.S. is going to step up and the Iron Dome is going to work. And hopefully nothing happens. Hopefully no one shoots anything and everything and peace reigns. But a lot of us are nervous and justifiably so. And it makes sense that we're nervous. And here we have the Rebbe teaching us and Torah teaching us that there is a way, at least spiritually, to enhance Israel's protection. And it all goes back to the second point. Israel is holy. And what that means is that to be worthy of Israel means that we are holy, that we act in a holy way. And acting in a holy way means, as I said before, it means thinking a little bit less about ourselves and more about what we're here for. Torah study, which gives us the guidance, right? The direction, the GPS about where we're headed. And then actually doing mitzvot, actually giving of ourselves and our time to enhance the world around us and to enhance the life of our fellow human being. When we do mitzvot and study Torah, etc., and we pray, these are things that make us a little bit holy, lift us a little bit higher than we were beforehand, and that makes us worthy of the land. And when we're worthy of the land, then the land itself is protected. And that's how we conclude today's class. The idea that protection, spiritual protection, which leads to physical protection, comes from our physical thing. Now, that doesn't mean we don't need an army. It doesn't mean we don't need weapons. It doesn't mean we don't need security. We don't need an Iron Dome. We need all that. We need all that on the ground. But at the same time, we also need the spiritual protection, because at the end of the day, a holy land is not just protected by guns and iron domes and aircraft. A holy land is protected by holy activities. So all of us, I think it's a good time of year and a good moment that we can increase, even if it's 1 minute a day, 60 more seconds of either prayer or 60 more seconds of Torah study, or 60 more seconds of doing a mitzvah, or an extra 25 cents to tzedakah, whatever it is. Just increase something. It's not about how much, it's about which direction we're going. Increase in one area. Torah, tefillah, tzedakah, mitzvah, whatever it is, something positive, something holy. Remember, it's a holy land. Holy land is enhanced and protected when we keep our end of the bargain and we show up as a holy people. So that's the message for tonight, and I think it's a resonant message. Did I say it? I don't know if I got that right. It resonates, at least for me, it resonates, and I hope it resonates for you. Right? It's a holy land. It almost demands a holy people, and it's a call to each of us, a call to action, to step up our game in even a small way. Doesn't have to be big. Don't make it too big that you're not going to do it. Some small way to step up a little bit more Torah, a little bit more tefillah, a little bit more tzedakah, a little bit more mitzvah to enhance Israel's security. And with that blessing, may indeed Israel be secure. May everyone find peace and happiness and positivity. May we have no need to worry and no need for anxiety. Things should work out in a peaceful way. And look, I know this. The cliche was always like when they had the Miss America pageant or whatever, right? Like a good Chabad yeshiva student would want. I'm kidding. When they would have these pageants, right? So they would ask you, like, the contestants, okay, what do you want? What's your wish? Like, oh, world peace. Like, wasn't that always the cliche? Everyone wanted world peace. Totally. Or something, world peace. Yeah, but you know what they were really saying? We want Mashiach now. That's what everyone was saying. We want Mashiach. What's Mashiach? What Mashiach? Mashiach, i.e. Messiah. What is that? It's about this or that or that. No, at the core, it's simple. It's a world like Maimonides says, like kinnav, like sachris, like there's no jealousy, there's no anger, there's no bloodshed, there's no hurting each other. Everyone lives at peace within a higher framework. That's beautiful. Huh? Shabbat every day. Right? No need to drive yourself crazy. No competition. Literally.
Love each other.
Maimonides says, no one's fighting. There's no competition. That's it. It's beautiful. Who doesn't want that? I thought people are like, oh, Mashiach, what's that? What's that? Shit, what's that? It's what you want. You just don't call it that. Trust me, you want it. Everyone wants it. Everyone wants the same thing. Who doesn't want to live in peace? Who doesn't want a life without a lot of pain? You want that? You want a life without pain? Great. You also want Mashiach. You might not know the word. You might not think that's what you want. That's what you want. So I want to conclude with a blessing that Mashiach should come and all the craziness should come to an end. And we should indeed have the blessing of peace, because without the blessing of peace, you can't really enjoy the other stuff. Thank you all for joining tonight. I hope this class resonated. Yeah, amen. And we have our work cut out for us. We got some spiritual work. I do want to mention a few things. Tisha B'Av is next week, and that means very important announcement, highly important. Let me think. Hold on.
Next 13th.
What else
On the 13th is the movie.
One second.
Next
Let me
Tuesday is Tisha B'Av.
Tuesday night or Tuesday day?
Tuesday day.
day, Monday night.
Tuesday day. So starts Monday night.
So I don't know why. Okay. So I boxed myself out. That's weird. Okay, it happens. Listen, there's no class next Tuesday night. It's a fast day. It's Tisha B'Av.
Right.
Right. So it's like the end of a 25-hour fast.
Yeah.
Like the fast is gonna end like 9 something. Like, yeah, we're not having class on Tuesday night. That's number one. I had moved it on the calendar, like even on the website, to Monday night. But that's not accurate either, because Monday night the fast starts.
Tuesday
So
night, 6 o'clock, Tuesday night. Tuesday night, 6 o'clock is when you're showing your.
We have a
break.
film. I can handle. We're not gonna do a class on Tuesday
No
night.
class.
We're not doing a class. I can hit play on a film. We're gonna do a film. Okay, so 1 second. I have to figure out, because we have a class for Tisha B'Av, when we're gonna do the class. Stay tuned. Let me see if we can do this. Maybe we'll do a Zoom only on a Sunday night. Whoever can joins. Maybe. I don't want to. Maybe next Tuesday.
Fast begin at 8:30.
8:30. No, the fast. No, it's too. No, we can't. I don't want to go into the. I don't want to go into the class, into the fast straight from the class. I think that's gonna be too active. Okay, look. No class Tuesday night. Just to be very clear. No class Tuesday night. No class Monday night either. I was gonna move it to Monday, but I just wasn't paying attention. Maybe Sunday night. Stay tuned. Maybe we'll sneak in a Zoom only thing. Okay, I'll send out a message about that. But other quick announcements. Tuesday, which is Tisha B'Av, fast commemorating the destruction of both holy temples. We are showing. This is a very big deal, actually. I don't know if it's coming across in the marketing that we're sending out, but it's a big deal. We are one of the first locations in the U.S. to premiere this film that was released a few years ago in Israel, won 4 Israeli Academy Awards. It's not for kids. It's animated, but it's not for kids. It's a serious movie about what went down on the ground before the temple's destruction, the infighting and the chaos. And it's a really cautionary tale for societies breaking down internally, which is very important for today. So we're screening that on Tisha B'Av. It's the fast day, but 6 p.m. The lights will be dimmed. The air conditioning will be cool. Somebody texted me like, "Oh, can we serve popcorn?" I'm like, "No, we cannot serve popcorn. It is still a fast day, even though a movie's playing." So that's 6 p.m. It's about an hour and a half. I'll open it with some remarks. We'll have some concluding remarks, and then there's going to be a mincha ma'ariv, and the fast will end. We'll have a service for that. Fast. I don't remember exactly when the fast is over. I know mincha begins at 7:45. So from 6 to 7:45, we'll have 8:58. Okay. Usually you can shop around with calendars. I'm kidding, but I mean, maybe you can find out when it's over in England. Maybe they have it earlier. Machda England, make here England, like we said about Israel last week. So that's one thing. So that's that. Then we have, of course, Journey of the Soul course, and we have the election course. We have a few events that are brewing. I know I like to kind of tease these things. We have some really cool things that are brewing. As soon as they're brewed, I will share them. But just know we have a lot of amazing things coming up. So stay tuned. Yeah, we're starting some stuff. Hopefully, I spoke with the new place this week, and they're not 100% ready, but we're almost ready. I mean, they're almost ready.
What are
The
you
Dupree.
talking about?
The Dupree. It's a new building. It's and we're called the Dupree now.
So we
Anyway.
have to move from here.
No. We're not moving anything yet. I'm just saying there's going to be another location for some
Cool
programming, a cool place.
New stuff.
Anyway, whatever. You stay tuned. And then events. Okay, so take a look. Hang out at the website. Always refresh the website, Torah Center website, the Torah Center ATL.org, because you never know when something new is going to pop up.
What exactly is it?
What is what?
The website?
Oh, the Torah Center ATL.org. Can't miss it. I mean, unless you. Okay, good. Questions, comments?
So man-made places that have that energy, what's going on there? Like, how does that happen? It's just
It's a good question. You're saying a man-made place where a lot of bad things have
latent
happened.
energy that's
Yeah.
still left there.
You know what's interesting? I'll give you a parallel. It says in Jewish law not to name somebody, like a child, after somebody, a relative who had a tragic
Yeah.
death.
Right.
It's like, oh, but I want to name after
Oh.
so-and-so because they had, actually, it's not a great idea.
Mhm.
Or
I named
modify
after
modify the name
Yeah.
slightly. No, but sometimes they would modify the name slightly or like spell it a little bit differently, just to create a little bit of modifier. So there is a thing in Jewish law or practice or tradition or custom to kind of, to recognize the effects of negative, I don't know, whatever you call it, negative energy or whatever, and kind of try to avoid that. So I think in a parallel, you could have places or spaces that have negativity there. Look, I mean, I know, so I'm not going to share some stories, but like I know some stories of places that had, I'm not going to use the word haunted, but had like negative energy, and things were done to kind of, flip it in a positive way. There are some practices Kabbalistically and mystically and spiritually and whatever, Jewishly, that kind of like, I don't know what the right word is, reclaim, reformat, or transform or rehabilitate a space.
Purify.
So they're purify space. So that's, there's something like that. The Holy Land though doesn't need purification. Where?
You feel
It-
the holy
In,
Israel.
yeah, that's the point.
Oh, definitely.
In Israel, you feel it. By the way, why do you think everyone's so, why is everyone always, it's like, this?
Yeah.
Because there's the energy is amped up.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife
They're
joked
crazy
that like
over
there's
there.
not enough air conditioning. Everyone's like, just get everyone an air
Yeah, it's
conditioner.
hot.
Everyone would calm down a little bit. No, okay, but like
I-
tensions are hot because like the energy is hot. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Did the Jews ever take possession until the Euphrates? I mean, I don't see
I'm
that.
not great with the geography. I can't tell you here or there, but there are some areas that were not originally settled in the times of Joshua that then were settled later. I don't know if they ever got the full borders.
I don't
Maybe
think
they
so.
did. Maybe they did. I don't know. I'm not sure. But the Kini, I know the Hebrews, the Kini, Knizi, and Kadmoni. It says there are seven original lands, but Israel was really supposed to be like 10 lands, but the other 3 are only when Mashiach comes, then those 3 are going to also come into it. And it's like symbolic of the 7 emotions, the 3 intellectual things. Like there's Kabbalistic parallels, but there is this idea of the Kini, Knizi, and Kadmoni. Those are the 3 nations that I don't think were ever, officially settled. And those 3 are like the Rebbe would say often, like ending a sikha, ending a talk, like the Eretz Kini, Knizi, Kadmoni, like those lands will get when Mashiach comes, and kind of like with a wish for that as well. So yeah. All right.
Cool.
Good stuff. Great to see everybody. Lila Tov, y'all.
Lila Tov.
Maxie, Charna, Howard, Faye, Jeff, Diane, Merle, Mark, Susan, Richard, Lisa, David, Mom, and I see myself also.
Should I pop back on?
Huh?
Should I pop back on?
No, Yaakov also. Sandrine, Tova. All right, good to see everybody. Piskia, good to see you. All right, Lila Tov, guys.
Lila Tov,
See you
Yashkoach.
later.